In this video, we're going to pick up where we left off in part 1 and show you how we created this inset here for our heat press glitter and into a soccer ball heart. So the first thing we're going to do is borrow our heart shape from our original frame. And then I'm going to import a soccer ball image that I got off of Google Images. I'm going to resize my soccer ball image to roughly the same size as my heart. I'm not going to necessarily get it exact, but just about big enough. And then what we're going to do is right click on the bitmap and hover over the heart and choose the power clip inside option. Then what we're going to do is right click on our heart and choose the edit power clip option. And then we can kind of move our ball about and resize the ball, position the ball however we want to. And then once I have the ball positioned within my heart the way I want, I'm just going to right click and choose finish editing this level. This will give us a good representation of what the finished design is going to look like. And I'm not particularly wild about this particular configuration. So let's go back in and edit the contents of the power clip by right clicking and choosing edit power clip. And what would happen if we just rotated this bitmap? So let's try rotating it into a more favorable position, and then I can fine-tune the exact position just by using some arrow keys to get this looking and positioned the way I think it's going to best look within my heart shape. Now if we look at the original version, you can kind of see where these diamond shapes appeared, and I think that is going to be pretty close to what I had originally. So I can right click and choose finish editing this level, and this will give us a better representation of what our finished heart is going to look like. Now the next thing I want to talk to you about, just to explain to you what's happening here. When you put a bitmap inside of a vector shape, it's called a power clip. When we switch over to wireframe mode, however, it's only going to show us bitmaps and vector shapes that are not power clipped. So it does not show the contents of the power clip, and we need to be able to see our original image. So go back to enhance mode here. Once we have our image inside of our shape the way we want to, we're going to pull it back out. So to do that, just right click, choose the extract contents option, and that's going to leave the soccer ball in the exact same position. Now we're just going to push it behind our heart by selecting our soccer ball, hitting shift page down. That pushes it behind our heart. Now you get this big X here. This is only in CorelDRAW X6. There is an option to turn this off in preferences, but to get rid of that, we're just going to right click and choose frame type none. And that will get rid of the X as well. Now we're going to give it no fill. Let's give it an outline color. Let's give it some thickness, that outline some thickness, just so we can see it better here in the video demonstration. All right, so now we have our source image that we can kind of trace over all of these lines. But I would do that in wireframe mode just for simplicity. So we're going to go ahead and go to wireframe mode, choose our 2-point line tool, and go from edge and just follow the original design. Do not sweat the fact that you're not following the exact path, because you know you're a designer now, so you can just kind of, and you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything real exact. I'm just gonna use these lines as a guide and get it close. If you want to take your time and really get it precise, you could certainly do that. I'm just kind of giving you the idea here. And I will provide this finished project file for you. I'll provide a link in the video description below so you can download my finished version and just kind of compare it maybe with what you come up with. So we're just gonna, we didn't quite get from node to node, so we do want to kind of take our time enough to get it from corner to corner, node to node, because in our next step it's going to be important that all these lines are connecting at their corner points or close to it. Alright, so I think that is all the lines. Let's go back to enhance mode so we can see this a bit more clearly. Select everything but the bitmap and make a copy. And now you get a better idea of what this is going to look like. I'm going to set my outline heart to hairline outline. All these lines I want to give some thickness to. So we'll choose 10 points for my example. Gives us a little bit of thickness. Now do you see this little part right here? We need to get rid of those. They're happening everywhere. So all we're going to do is double click on our line and extend it out a bit. You'll see why here in a moment that that's important. Don't worry if they overlap each other like that. It's not important. So just extend each one of these lines a little bit. Not all of them maybe need it. Like this one right here, probably doesn't need it too bad, but we're going to extend it anyhow. So you can see now all those lines are extended. All right, so now the next step then is to, I tell you what, I'm just going to go ahead and make a duplicate of this. I like to do it in stages. So the next step is to use our coloring book tool, better known as our Smart Fill tool, and just color inside all of our lines. Pretty simple, right? But here's a problem. We actually skipped a step. And that is, you can see what happened here. Our lines have no thickness to them. Not that CorelDRAW sees. So let's go ahead and delete this because I did forget a step. Let's go ahead and make a duplicate so we can look at this a bit more in detail. Go into wireframe mode. You can see that these lines that we gave a thickness to actually have no thickness at all. Not as CorelDRAW sees it. So what we need to do is select all of those paths with that 10-point outline and choose this option right here, Convert Outline to Object. Now you can see that we have that thickness that we need. We do have all these overlaps, so we'll choose the editing option here of Weld Objects here in EasyStone. And now we can use our coloring book tool. So go back in here, coloring book. Just clicking inside the white space areas, and now we have all these new shapes. So we're going to select one shape and hit Mark Selected Object, and then we're going to select everything and click on Create Selection. And what that does is it creates a selection of all similar shapes. And then we'll go ahead and combine those all together and right click, and there we have it. So if I want to add a weed box around this, give it a color. You can see we have a cool soccer ball shape, and of course we can come into our Specialty tab and choose our glitter fill option and fill it full of glitter, and there you go. So nice, simple design to do in a single color glitter, which will be great to go inside of our frame, our rhinestone frame, just like this. Makes for a really nice design. Now, what about the next step though? What about really taking it to the next level? And what if we wanted to complicate our life? And what if we wanted to do glitter on glitter? So maybe like with our lines, maybe our shirt we're going to do is a light gray color. And maybe we want our lines, instead of the color of our shirt, we want our lines to be done in black glitter. Well, we can certainly do that, but there are some special considerations. And when you're preparing those files, and I'll share that with you here, but just know that this part of the video, you got to put your thinking cap on, because it does take a little bit of know-how and understanding, and I'll try to explain everything in great detail for you. It's really not complicated, but it is a little bit technical to understand what's really happening here. Okay? So I just want to kind of forewarn you that this is dipping in it here just a little bit. All right. So let's do this. Let's take, we have these lines. Tell you what, let's go back to this version right here. we have all these overlapping lines, right? Let's go back to wireframe mode. Okay, these have not been converted yet. So let's convert those and let's weld them. Let's go back over here, go to our editing tab and weld. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to trim back all these lines back to the original heart shape. All right, so to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to select both of these, and I'm just going to use the Corel Draw method. So come over here. Let's go ahead and just get rid of our glitter fill for now, and let's choose the Intersect option. So we're going to select our heart, intersect with our lines. And what that does is it creates a new object. We can't see it because in the mode that we're in, but it actually creates a new object. Let's go back to enhance mode here, where that has all been trimmed back to the original heart shape. So where these all overextended, now these have been intersected with the heart and trimmed back to the heart shape, which is what we need for our glitter. So in other words, if we were to take this line and go from node to node, you can see how that would fill in perfectly. But here's the challenge when you're doing glitter on glitter or any two-color design. It is not good to have what they call butt registration. And right now we have butt registration. If we go into wireframe mode, you can see that the edges of our black lines butt directly to the edge of our glitter heart. So you see that there? So let's say we're going to do our heart shape in silver glitter, our lines in black glitter. Right now we have what they call butt registration. So it's problematic because what happens is if our material shifts ever so slightly, then where these lines are touching one another right now, there's a potential for a gap in our fabric. Okay, so when you're doing in the screen printing world, we have a similar issue, but we deal with that as well with our bleed margin. So one color is slightly overlapping the other color, so it appears as though they're touching, but really they are slightly overlapping. And even in embroidery, we have the same issue, which we deal with by providing a little bit of compensation when you're doing one color on top of another. There's a embroidery parameter called compensation where it compensates for that fabric shrinkage. So the color that's on top has just a bit more compensation to cover up the edge of the underlying color. So we need to do something similar to that when you're doing your heat press designs. Now the amount of compensation, the amount of bleed, if you will, you'll have to play with the fabrics that you're using, the materials that you're using, all will kind of play a bit of a role in that. But what we'll do here is give you a basic understanding, and then you can kind of play with the parameters of what you find works best for you. Definitely butt registration isn't the ticket. So you definitely want to add some compensation or bleed margin if you want to borrow some of the terminology from other industries. But how much is you're going to have to take a little practice with. I would recommend that you start with at a minimum of a 0.5 millimeter. Now, a 0.5 millimeter doesn't sound like a lot, but it is probably a good starting point. Now, the other point to make too when you're dealing with glitter and glitter is glitter and glitter technically cannot be overlapped. All right, and so it kind of goes against what you can't do. You can't overlap it, and that much is true. But when we're overlapping by this just slight tiny bit amount, what happens is when you apply your first layer of glitter and then you go to apply your second layer of glitter, because of the way the material will change, even though in your artwork it's overlapping, on the actual garment it won't be, because of the way the material will change. The fabric of your shirt will shrink, and so that overlap is minimized when you actually go to make the garment. All right, so enough of that. Let's show you how to create that overlap. So right now we have butt registration. So what I want to do is I don't want my lines to be any thicker than what they are. So what I have to do is I have to make my heart shape come into the lines a little bit. If I double click here, you can see these nodes are touching the same boundary as my lines. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to simply take our heart, grab our contour tool, and click and drag. I'm going to bring it out a lot. But do you see those red lines? Do you see how they're smaller than our black lines, right? That's the amount of overlap that we're talking about messing with. So usually when I start this process, I'll click and drag and pull it out a lot. I've over-exaggerated how much I really need, deliberately. All right, let's go ahead and delete this weed box. So let's so we have this contour applied now. You can see that contour. So what we're going to do then is change the amount of contour, and I'm going to start with 0.5 mm. And now you can see that's a 0.5 millimeter. If we go to wireframe mode, see that distance? That's a 0.5 millimeter of overlap. Okay? So that's how much overlap I would recommend that you start with, and then, like I said, you can kind of tweak it from there. Somewhere between 0.3 of a millimeter and a 0.5 millimeter. Somewhere I would try starting there. So now, but we do have more issues that we need to deal with, because we do have the overlap, the compensation, the bleed margin that we need, but then we have this little extra strip that we also have that we don't want. So how do we get rid of that? Well, if we go back to wireframe mode here, we have our original shape here, and we also have our original heart shape over here. So let's find our original heart shape. Oops, this is our original heart shape over here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to select this offset, this contour that we did, and right click and choose break contour group apart. And then here's our original heart shape. Now let's go back into enhanced mode so we can maybe make sense of this. It's going to be a little bit complicated. So the first thing we're going to do is delete, well, no, we're not going to delete the yellow, because we actually going to need this yellow. We're going to create a guideline at the point horizontally and vertically of our yellow heart. And then we're going to delete our yellow heart, and then we're going to take and make that yellow again. Okay, so now you can kind of see what we have, hopefully, but we have this. So we have the overlap that we wanted, but we have this, and that's what we need to get rid of. So we got our original heart shape here, and here it is down here, and we're going to just set this point right on the intersection of those guidelines, just like so. And let's see, let's take a look here. So now you can see how this line is lining up right to the edge of our lines, okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a bit of a cookie cutter. So we're going to just make it bigger, right click to make a duplicate. So now we have our big heart on the outside, and then we have our little heart on the inside. So we're going to select them both, combine, shift page up. So now we have our cookie cutter. Let's show you what that looks like. So there's our cookie cutter. Shift our yellow heart that we need to trim back. Let's go into wireframe mode so we can see this real clearly. So you see where it's overhanging? We need to trim that back. So if I click on Trim Objects here in EasyStone, it trimmed it straight back, right? So where the lines are overlapping, you still have all that nice overlap that we need. Let's go back into enhanced mode. So visually, you don't see a whole lot different. Let's go ahead and add a weed box. Let's get rid of our guidelines. And take our yellow, and let's fill it with silver glitter. And then take our, and again, we're going to do on a light colored shirt. And then we're going to take our black lines and we'll fill those with black glitter. Okay, so a little bit different look now to it. So when you put your silver down, then we're going to line up our black glitter on top of it. And again, if we go into wireframe mode here, you'll see that slight overlap from the silver to the black lines. And that will help register your black lines when you go to put those on, and you won't see the garment color between your two colors of glitter. But you can see it turned out to be a really good looking option as well. All right, so hopefully that is clear as mud to you. Watch that video a time or two to get down all those individual steps, and I think you'll see that it really does make a lot of sense, and it's pretty easy to do, and you'll probably better appreciate doing your single color type designs because we don't have that extra artwork preparation. But if you do want to put it on a lighter colored garment, then you might have to do it as a two color. So it's good to know how to do that as a two color as well. Thanks for watching.